The sun was dipping behind jagged mesas, casting long shadows across the dusty plaza of the frontier town. Horses stamped and snorted, clouds of dust rising with each hoofbeat, while townsfolk whispered among themselves, their eyes darting toward the makeshift auction stand. And there she was, a young Apache woman, hands tied, her hair a wild tangle, her eyes blazing with defiance. She glared at the crowd, refusing to bow her head. This was no ordinary sale, it was a show of ownership, a cruel exhibition of power. A cowboy stepped forward from the edge of the crowd, his silhouette outlined against the fading orange sky. Dust clung to his worn boots and leather duster, and a wide, brimmed hat shadowed his face. In his hand he carried 3 crumpled dollars, a pittance but enough to buy what others treated as a commodity. Whispers rippled through the crowd. $3, that's all he's offering for her? Are you mad, cowboy? The Apache woman's lips twisted in anger, her voice rising above the murmurs. I'd rather die, she spat, eyes flashing with fury and fear. I'd rather see the sun set on my life than be sold to anyone, the crowd murmured, tension hanging thick like the desert heat, and the cowboy froze for a heartbeat, studying her face. Most would have cowered or flinched. But he didn't. He simply reached into his pocket, counted out the $3, and dropped them into the auctioneer's hand. Silence fell like a heavy blanket. The auctioneer's eyes widened. The crowd held its breath, and the Apache woman's defiance didn't falter, not yet. The cowboy walked closer, boots crunching against the dry earth. He didn't say a word. Instead, he tugged gently at her tied hands, loosening them just enough for her to pull away, just enough to show her she still had a choice. In that moment, the first spark of trust flickered in her chest. Tiny, wary, but real. If this scene gave you chills, hit like and subscribe. You won't believe what happens next. The night was deepening, and the desert stretched endlessly in shades of silver and black under a crescent moon. The cowboy led the Apache woman to his horse, and though she hesitated, she climbed onto the saddle behind him, gripping his waist with a mixture of fear and disbelief. The wind whipped her hair, carrying the scent of sagebrush and distant rain. Her pulse raced, and every muscle in her body screamed distrust, yet there was no turning back. The cowboy rode with steady hands, eyes scanning the horizon, ears tuned to the whisper of the desert. He never spoke more than necessary, letting the quiet between them speak instead. And slowly, the Apache woman began to notice the subtle differences, the way he didn't tighten his grip on her, the way he seemed more concerned with her survival than her submission. Suspicion lingered in her eyes, but the seed of curiosity was planted. Hours passed, shadows lengthening and melting into darkness. Somewhere far ahead, the low, jagged outlines of a canyon promised shelter, a place where the desert's dangers might momentarily fade. Yet even as she settled into the rhythm of the ride, fear clawed at her chest. Why? She asked finally, her voice trembling. Why would you pay for me for just $3? Why not let me die? The cowboy glanced at her, his jaw set, eyes glinting under the moonlight. Because I know a life isn't measured by its price, he said quietly, and some debts are more than money can cover. His words lingered in the night air, heavy with mystery and unspoken promises. And in that silence, as the desert wind caressed them, the Apache woman realized she had entered a world she didn't understand, a world that might just save her if she allowed herself to trust. The next morning, the sun rose like molten gold, burning away the night's shadows and illuminating the harsh, unforgiving landscape. Rocks jutted from the ground like ancient teeth, and the heat shimmered across the sands, testing both horse and rider. The Apache woman's muscles ached from the night's ride, but her spirit refused to yield. Every glance toward the cowboy was filled with cautious assessment, measuring his intentions, his temperament, his honesty. And then the danger came. A band of raiders scavenging through the desert spotted them from afar and gave chase. Dust plumes rose behind their horses, shouts echoing off the canyon walls. Panic surged in her chest, but the cowboy's presence was a solid anchor. With a commanding tone, he directed her, guided her, and rode with precision and fury. Arrows whizzed past, and he blocked one with the brim of his hat, the reins snapping taut as he turned his horse sharply. In the chaos, the Apache woman's fear transformed into grudging respect. He wasn't just strong. He was deliberate, careful, protective. And when they finally crested a ridge, leaving the raiders far below in swirling dust, she realized something terrifyingly beautiful. She had begun to rely on him, perhaps even trust him. That night, around a small fire in a hidden canyon, he offered her water and bread. The flickering flames danced across their faces, shadows playing over emotions too complex to name. "I could have left you," he said softly, "but I didn't. I don't make promises I can't keep." She stared at him, her heart and mind tangled between defiance and awe, realizing that the man who had purchased her for $3 had given her something far more valuable: hope. The days that followed were a careful, measured journey through the desert's trials. The Apache woman's strength grew, her understanding of the cowboy deepened. They faced scorching heat, treacherous cliffs, and lonely nights filled with the sounds of coyotes and distant storms. And with every challenge, her resentment softened, replaced by a complicated, fierce gratitude. One morning, as dawn painted the desert in pale pinks and oranges, she turned to him. I never thought I'd survive this. Not the desert, not them, not even myself." The cowboy tipped his hat, his expression unreadable. "You survived because you refused to die, and because you chose to ride with me. That makes all the difference." The Apache woman smiled faintly, a glimmer of warmth in her eyes. She had been bought for $3, but she had gained a life reclaimed from fear, a freedom forged through trial and trust. And as they rode toward the distant horizon, the wind in their hair and the sun warming their backs, she understood that her story had only just begun. Zen, if you felt the thrill of survival, the tension of the chase, and the beauty of hope against all odds, make sure to like and subscribe. More incredible Wild West stories are coming soon.